Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another podcast edition of Create Yourself Imagery, Intimacy, Innovation, a place where people from all walks of life and various backgrounds come to share their transformative stories of entrepreneurship, challenges they've gone through. We talk about confidence, clarity, empowerment, education, and so much more. So if you are ready to transition, transform, and thrive, this is indeed the podcast for you. I am Joyce Kyles, your global speaker, author, trainer, coach, and consultant. We are glad to have you here. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. If you're returning, as always, welcome back. And we always encourage you to tell a friend, to tell two more friends to tune in, because this is the place where transformation and thriving live. So without further ado, I am just so excited, as I always am, about my guests, people who have been listening. You all know that I'm very intentional about the people that I bring on the show. So this week is no exception. You all now, my guest and I have not known each other very long. I would say maybe the last 6 months. So I joined the National Speakers Association, the Georgia chapter, and had the opportunity to meet this young man, and we just hit it off instantly. We share some common interests. We are both aspiring and growing and emerging in our speaking platforms and just business as a whole. So we've been doing what we've been doing for a long time, but we wanted to really perfect the business side of what it means to be a speaker, to be a trainer, to be a coach, these types of things. And so I'm excited that he said yes, that he's interested in being a guest on the show. And I know that you are going to gain some useful insights that's going to carry you over into your next. So without further ado, let me introduce to some and present to others, none other than Eddie L. Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for having me. I am so excited to be here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it again that you said yes. We've been talking about doing this now for a minute, so I'm glad that time and opportunity has presented itself. So, with that being said, we're just going to jump right in. Those who have clicked on so that you could listen to the podcast, you already see his bio and you see ways to connect. But what I'd like is for my guests to talk to us about their create yourself journey, how they came into this journey, things that may not necessarily be listed in the bio, but definitely define you in your path. So this time the floor is yours, just in your own words. Tell us about who Eddie Johnson is and how this became your path.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that. So, I'm a career strategist, a breakthrough expert, speaker, author who empowers professionals to overcome challenges, embrace new beginnings, and navigate career transitions with clarity, confidence, positioning, and forward momentum. Now, I'll tell you, my path to this space is a little different than most, to a degree. So I will say this, back in April 2017, I was celebrating my 20-year anniversary that particular month with the company I was with. And my director flew into town, called for a meeting, not unusual, walked into the room, and there was no balloons, Joyce, there was no confetti, there was no cake, but there was an empty chair for a conversation. And the conversation kind of went along the lines of, Eddie, you're a good leader, but unfortunately, as you already know, the company is going through a change right now. So, for the first time in my career, I was on the outside looking in, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? What's my next move into this? I have no clue what to do in this moment. And I'll tell you, as it would be, I am a man of faith, all right? And as it would be, I was headed home, and this unbelievable song came on the radio that's very near and dear to me. That's by Yolanda Adams that says, "This battle is not yours." And that was my indication that everything was going to be okay, right? And so I had an opportunity in that moment to make an investment into myself. And that investment was allowed me the opportunity to go deep, to better understand who I was as a person, as a professional. And in doing so, I realized that there were gifts, talents, and skills that I had not fully used. So I decided to make a pivot. I basically did credit management for 20 plus years in my career, and I decided to go and be a Christian author and write a book called Passing the Test of Faith. I started doing some inspirational speaking, and then I started doing some coaching, not realizing that I would eventually coach people going through exactly what I had already experienced in my career and in my life as well. So that's a little bit about me and how I got started in this space and why I love it so much.
You know, I am so glad that you and I are having this conversation at this time because there are so many people right now who have gone through this pivot and this change of what do I do now? Because I've been let go. I've been let go from the job, or, even more personally, that maybe that, they're transitioning in a marriage or a relationship, and I have a lot of individuals who listen to this podcast who, are entrepreneurs, or they're deciding that, I need to go this route. And then they recognize, you know what, after all these years, this is no longer working.
Hmm.
And I need a new career. I need a new start. I need to change. I need to transition. And because you are a person of faith, and I appreciate that you brought that piece up too. How do we tap back into our faith when it seems that life is falling apart? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. Great question. You know, actually, one of my favorite quotes is a quote by Marilyn Monroe that says, "Sometimes so that better can fall together." And when we're in a moment where things are falling apart, sometimes it can feel like, man, how in the world can I find something to come together in this moment? Right. And so what I share with people is this, is that the way that we kind of tap into our faith and the way that we find a way to bridge the gap to get us back on track is we got to find something small. See, what tends to happen is when we're facing something, a transition in our life, um, a big moment in our life where things are just seem chaotic, what we tend to do is we tend to go to look for one thing that can offset that one thing that we're dealing with. Joyce said, it doesn't happen. We don't find it. So, what I share with people often is find one small blessing. Find one small thing because that one small thing will open your eyes to other small things. And so the analogy I like to use is if I'm in the weight room, okay? And on one side of the bar I have 25 pounds. On the other side of the bar I have another 25 pounds. In order for me to balance it, I got to balance this thing out. So as opposed to me trying to find a 25-pound thing to balance it out, you know what? Find a 2.5 pound thing. Find a
Good.
5 pound thing. Find a 10 pound thing. Find another five and another 2.5. And before you know it, guess what? You just balance the situation and what you're dealing with. So what I would share is that, you know what? Find one blessing because that one small blessing will open your eyes to other blessings. And before you know it, you will overcome and you will realize that, man, I got so much to be grateful for and thankful for in that moment that I'm dealing with that may totally surprise you.
Oh, such great gems, such great gems. You are absolutely right. And, I speak a lot about elephants. What color is your elephant is one of my signatures.
Hmm.
And I grew up always hearing, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And so with you sharing that, I immediately started thinking about how sometimes things will seem so overwhelming and so big. And it's like, you got to take a step back and just start remembering, what did I learn from this? What did I gain from this? What experiences can I take and create a new thing? and start small. Sometimes you don't have to necessarily start grand because when you think so big and think you've got to do it all big, then it becomes overwhelming. But if you have a big idea, but you start picking apart like one thing that I can find, like you said, just find that one small something
Hmm.
and build on it. We can have a huge house, but the huge house didn't just magically appear. It was brick by brick, one piece of wood after another piece of wood. That's how it works. So I love that analogy about the weight room as I am working to pivot to get back in there. But that's a conversation for another day.
You and me both.
Oh man. So with that though, you mentioned about your book. So it's one of the things that you decided to do. So tell us a bit about the book, a bit more about your passion and how you use the book, how you share it, just all the things.
Yeah, great, great. I appreciate that. So I will tell you this. Writing a book for me was not the easiest thing. All right. I'm a numbers guy. I was an accounting major in college. I did credit management for 20 plus years. And sitting down, reading was not my thing. And definitely writing. If I had to write 2 paragraphs for my team, it would take me a couple of hours to put those 2 paragraphs together because I'm like, this thing got to be perfect, the whole nine. Anyway, what I was telling you is that the book is called Passing the Test of Faith, and it's a self-help inspirational book. And it's a story about how faith has been a very transformative thing for me, right? So I will say this is that back in 2003, I faced the biggest challenge of my life. My 3-year-old son, firstborn, Kendall, was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. And I made a decision instantly when the doctor said tumor that I was going to rely on my faith. Now, as it would turn out, I'm trusting God in this moment and everything. And people are slowly over time are asking me, where did you get faith to trust God with something so big? I don't think I could have trusted God the way that you were trusting God. I was watching you. And that's the thing I didn't know is that people were watching me. And that's the same thing for us. When we're facing something in life, people are often watching to see how are we going to handle that scenario in that situation in that moment. So after hearing this over and over of questions, I started wondering myself, man, where did I get faith to trust God with something so big? And so I started going back over my life. And I call those moments in my life those mountain experiences. And so what ended up happening, I ended up when I was in the ninth grade. During the ninth grade, I was this great athlete. The future was bright. Everybody was saying this kid has potential to be one of the top players come out of the state of Florida in basketball. I had broken the school record in eighth grade. I was doing it everything. I was a quarterback of the football team, co-captain of the football team, most outstanding offensive player. I was the MVP of the basketball team. I did the high jump. But what ended up happening was I ended up having a major injury toward the end of the season of my ninth grade year. And what ended up transpiring from that injury was a broken and dislocated thumb, a broken finger next to it, a sprained wrist, a sprained knee. I had to have surgery. And what happened was my athletic director said, Eddie, listen, if you're going to be athlete of the year, you have to do something in track and field. That was a problem. And the reason it was a problem is because I had no confidence. My spirit was broken. And I remember sitting down with my mother one day and saying, I'm not going to win this covenant award that I've had my eye on for 2 years. My mother said to me, son, do you know what faith is? She said, if you trust God and believe that you can do anything, but you got to trust God with it. And so she gave me these scriptures and I read these scriptures every day. I said, I have nothing to lose. And I went out the following week, and before I knew it, I had just cleared 5.3, which I could not clear all year long. It was bad. My hand is wrapped up in a pillow because I had just came off of a surgery from the injury. And before I knew it, I just cleared 6 feet. And I took second place and I went back the following week and I ended up winning the championship. Now, here was what was interesting. I thought that that injury literally took all of my dreams and aspirations away. But as I was going back and doing that reflecting time, what I realized is that that moment had to happen because it was preparing me for what I was going to deal with 17 years later with my son. But not only that, this is what I ended up realizing too, is that that day that I went out at that district meet and I cleared 5'3", 5'5", 5'7", 5'9", 6 feet, my faith was growing with every jump. And I didn't catch that then. I wasn't mature enough. But as I got older and I started putting the pieces together, that's when I realized, man, God had a plan with all this. It wasn't designed to break me or tear me apart. And that's what tends to happen many times is that we think that something that we're facing or that we're dealing with is there to break us or tear us apart. No, it's helping us to grow. It's helping us to get better. And so that's really what the book is about. And so I kind of share, my story and life lessons in that book. Interesting enough, God told me to write that book 8 years before that job went away. And I tried to run from that assignment. I was like, hold up, whoa, I'm not that guy. I'm a numbers guy. Writing a book? No. And on faith? Oh, absolutely not. But that was an ember that was planted. And over time, that ember was slowly becoming a flame. And I was writing down notes on stickies, on napkins, and everything. And when that job went away, God said, okay, so every excuse you've been given, Eddie, all those excuses are off the table now. What are you going to do? And I had to be obedient. And I had to trust him with what he told me to do. And I did it. So that's a long version of the story, but I had felt like I need to tell that today because I feel like maybe somebody needs to hear that what they're going through is not designed to break them or tear them apart, but it's really molding them. It's shaping them for something else that's bigger that they are yet to see.
Mm-hmm. We could really. I have a couple of other questions for you, but we could really end now. Uh, but I'm gonna get these other questions out. That was so good. So many gems, so many lessons to learn and to be reminded of. So, as I'm listening to you share, I'm thinking about the different things that have gone on in my life. And, we are so good at running away or attempting to run away. And what I have learned is that what he wants you to do, it's going to go forward. And if you are the vessel that has been chosen for that particular assignment, all you're doing is prolonging what is assigned to you to do. And
Yes.
how much greater could we be? How much more would we have gained had we done the thing that we were assigned to do years before?
Hmm.
So I was listening to you share, and that's what rose up for me. And that I thank you for sharing so candidly about your son and your transitions and what it meant to be an athlete, to learn those lessons of pushing yourself,
Yeah.
even in that, and us as business owners, we need sometimes to be reminded of just how strong we are, just how much we have to give if we put our faith and our focus in the right places and
Yes.
be obedient. You know, the word says obedience is better than sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Yes.
Ooh, but I know it's hard, you know, as humans.
Yes.
As humans, it's hard for us sometimes to get in tune with that. But when we do, oh, the greatness to be had, the
Mhm.
lessons to learn. I know that someone needed to hear all that you shared. I'm gonna start with me and move up, you know, abroad and say, I needed to hear that and be reminded,
Mm.
you know, in a season of things that I'm working on right now. And we'll ask, you know, we question why and wonder
Mm.
why is this happening and why is this happening to me and in this way. But it is about preparation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can handle what's to come, good or indifferent, you know, because sometimes we need to be broken down and be
Mhm.
reminded of some things so that it can build us up for the greatness that is to come. So
Yeah.
I love that you've shared all those pieces. Thank you.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So I'm gonna move then into a different question. I want to talk a bit about the work that you do, your business itself. Like I know who you help, but those places and spaces that you're looking, you know, for, you know, are you looking for more clients? Are you looking to coach more? Are you looking to speak more? So, you know, just going into it a little bit about the work that you're doing and, you know, the types of people that you're wanting to connect with.
Yeah. So, mainly what I found is that I have this unique ability to find the best in others. Okay. And when people are going through challenges in general, what I realize is that those challenges that I faced in life, they were literally preparing me to be able to help other people that are going through challenges as well. And because I've overcome them, I know what it's like to get on the other side. So I like to see people win and get to the other side of what it is that they're dealing with. So in this space of coaching, career coaching, as a strategist, there are many people out there who are employed, been there for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're afraid of what might happen the next day. And they don't know where to start. Or they have been recently laid off, like I was 9 years ago, and they don't know where to start. And it can be very overwhelming. But I'm here to tell you that it's not as overwhelming as we think in our mind. It's just a matter of it's something we have not experienced before. So typically what I like to do is I like to come alongside people in those moments and help them navigate that process. Find the right strategies, the right tools to use so that they can actually get to the other side of what it is that they're dealing with as they're going through this transition in their life. So those are the kind of people that I look forward to working with and people who are open-minded, you know, open to doing something different. It's funny. Every now and then I'll get somebody that I'm working with and they'll send me their resume. And I love when I see resumes. I just laugh. When I see resumes, it says adjective at the beginning of the resume, right? Or it'll say references upon request at the end of the resume. That tells me right there they've been out of the game for a long time. And so when people are open-minded to difference and change, it makes the whole process so much easier because the game has changed a lot and it changes very frequently. So people who are open to change, you know, man, there's a winning strategy for those people.
Yeah, I agree. And you're absolutely right. The game has changed a lot. And now that we have AI, you know, infused in so much of it, it's so important that we be connected to people like you who recognize that, yeah, there's a different way to go about this and that you can gain confidence and clarity in
Hmm.
doing so. So I love that you have that sense of awareness about that to recognize, yeah, we need help, we need support, we need to know strategy. And once you get those tools, then there's a certain clarity and confidence that comes so that we can approach whatever that next phase looks like for us. So we need people like you to be able to do that. You do indeed have a gift of finding the best in people. I've watched that in your interactions of people at NSA and then just in us talking. Yeah, I know that to be true of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And that it's not I'm not going to say it's the easiest thing, but here's the thing too. You got to understand what your gifts are.
That's
You
good.
got to know where you thrive, right? And 9 years ago, when I made that investment in myself, that was the first time I ever made an investment in myself like that. Um, a friend of mine reached out to me. I had just lost a job, and he says, "Hey, Eddie, listen, me and several guys about to have a conversation, talk about legacy purpose, man. This be great." I was like, "Hold up, bro, I just lost my job, right?" But that was the best investment because it helped me to realize what I bring to the table. What do I bring when I walk into the room? And so when we understand what that is, we show up differently because
I
we can
agree.
walk in knowing exactly how we're going to show up. And that's so important.
And I know that that's one of the things that you do best in making people feel comfortable and confident. So, on this podcast, we talk about a lot of what it means to transition, transform, and thrive. And the
Hmm.
work that you do truly epitomizes all three of those areas with your coaching, with your writing, and look, let me share this too really quickly, just as we're getting ready to come to a close with the podcast. One thing that you lifted up as you were talking that I think is so important is well, a couple of things. Pivoting for one, and we've talked a bit about that. But you said when it came to writing the book, you didn't necessarily like you struggled with that. And yet you have written a book that works because you were obedient. So
Hmm.
as we're starting to close, I would just love for you to share with our audience, especially those who may be aspiring to be a writer or they're thinking about entrepreneurship as opposed to going back into the workforce. Talk to us about what it meant to be obedient and to push past the numbers and into writing
Hmm.
because somebody needs to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what I'll share. Um, when God gives us marching orders on something, many times we don't feel like we're equipped for it. But those are the people that God really wants the most. Because what happens is when it's all said and done, we're not taking credit for it. We know that it was God who was doing the work through us, as you said earlier, the vessel, right? I will share this. My experience was such, I was really afraid about this whole book thing. When God told me to write this book, He told me the name of the book and He told me what He wanted me to write about. And I was like, whoa, again, I don't know where to start. I don't know any of this stuff, right? But it was an ember that slowly became a flame. Here's what was happening. Over that 8 year period, God was preparing me. He was preparing me. So when it came time, I say, okay, God, so you want me to write this book? Where do I start? What do I do? And He said, just write. So I took all this box of stickies and napkins and pieces of paper and everything that I had, and I just kind of started sorting things out. Here's the thing, I didn't even know what the steps were, but God just said, right. Every time it was time for the next step, God provided the right person to assist me in that moment. And it was totally amazing. And so I kind of think back to entrepreneurs. I think about people who are going through transition. What has God asked you to do? What has God instructed you to do? What has God told you to do? Whatever that is, be obedient and trust him enough that if he told you to do it, he's not going to let you fail. He's not going to let you fail, right? So we got to be able to trust him enough to say, you know what, I'm going to move forward. When I tell you God provided me every step and everything I needed, it was amazing. I'll give you this one example. So I'd written a manuscript and I was deciding, am I going to publish or self-publish? And what am I going to do there? And as I was praying about that, God told me, he said, call James Hunter. And I'll never forget it. For a couple of days, call James Hunter. And I was like, man, why am I going to call James Hunter? So James Hunter is an author who wrote the book called The Servant Leadership. Great book, unbelievable book. And he had the opportunity to come and speak to our leadership team, our credit leadership team within the organization, spent about a year with us. And I was like, well, I'm going to call this guy. This guy's not going to remember me or whatever the case. So interesting enough, I got up enough courage to reach out to James, left him a message. He called me back and he says, hey, Eddie, man, I was returning your call. Help me to remember how I know you. Where did we meet? Right. And so I'm talking to him and I said, you know what, James, I'm going to cut straight to the chase. I'm going to be honest with you. So you helped us, our credit department, leadership team. I was the only African American in the room. And he says, Eddie, I remember you. He says, as a matter of fact, when I came to your annual meeting, you did the prayer to start the meeting at dinner that night. He said, I'll never forget it. And I was like, wow, okay. So we got a connection. He remembers who I am, right? So I'm telling him about what I'm doing. And I was telling him that I referenced his name in the book, in this one particular chapter on listening. And he said, so Eddie, what can I do to help you? And I was like, man, I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, publish or self-publish. And he says to me, Eddie, used a publishing company for my first two books. I did over 4 million copies. I just did my first self-published book. And there's a guy in his organization who helped me do it. I'm going to introduce you to him. And that organization and that company helped walk me through the rest of the process. Here was the thing. He had just released that self-published book a week prior. A week prior. And I ended up self-publishing. I did what's called a hybrid. They did the book cover, they did the interior design, they did all of those things for me. Got it on Amazon, the whole nine, and I own the rights to everything. But God was providing everything I needed. We just got to trust him. Whatever it is, we got to trust him.
Mm. Perfect. That's a perfect way for us to wrap up the podcast, um, because you shared so many words of wisdom, tools, resources. We want you to tap into whoever and however you believe, because I do recognize that I have listeners from all walks of life and all manners of faith and belief. So, whatever spiritual walk you're on, whatever that inner voice is, tap into that because it is
Mhm.
leading you to a place of prosperity and beyond your wildest dreams if you just believe in it, speak to it, speak through it, follow it, and don't give up. That I heard all those things in the journey. And when you speak and make your intentions known, the doors of opportunity will open because see, people can't help you, they can't
Mhm.
guide you if they don't know. So you took it upon yourself to just do it afraid, do it without knowing,
Yes.
walking in blind faith. And you know what? Okay, if this is the name that you gave me, I don't know what you have in store, but I'm gonna be obedient and just do
Mhm.
it. And look at what happens. So that can happen with writing books. It can happen with entrepreneurship. It can happen, in relationships, personal and professional. Just by sharing this is what I'm doing. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to just walk in that blind faith. So I'm so glad that you did. So my last question to you is, of course, all of your information is listed below of how to connect with you. But I always like to ask my guests, what's the best ways to connect with you and how to purchase your book?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach me is actually on all platforms. I'm at Eddie L. Johnson E4, mainly on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn because, again, I'm working with professionals all the time. So mainly on LinkedIn. So I would say, hey, you can reach me on LinkedIn at Eddie L. Johnson E4. When you go there, don't just follow me, connect with me. Okay? Connect with me that because I'm about connecting. Maybe there's a way that I can help you in some kind of way, right? And then another way that you can reach me as far as the book is you can go to my website at eddieLjohnson.com, eddieLjohnson.com, and there is a tab there where you can actually go in and purchase the book. So that's the best way to reach me. And I am an approachable person, so definitely make sure you connect.
All right. Thank you very much. So much for showing up for us today. We appreciate you being a guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to our listening audience, please know that you can reach out to him. He is personable. I can tell you that firsthand. So don't just follow him on LinkedIn, connect with him on LinkedIn. Purchase his books, purchase them in bulk. And do reach out to him and ask him about how he can serve you in your clients for speaking, for teaching, for training. He's here for it. You've had an opportunity to hear a bit about who he is and what he does, so he will not disappoint you. So again, thank you for tuning in to my listening audience because I could not do this without you. Until next time, go forward and create the life that you desire and deserve. And remember that you can do so at any age. Let's continue to transition, transform, and thrive together.